Our work revealed a shadow filled with artistic impulses and emotional sensitivity, qualities dismissed as impractical in his achievement-oriented household. His body was staging a revolt against the confined life he'd constructed. Healing began when he expanded his identity to include these disowned aspects. We approach these problems superficially. We use productivity apps for procrastination. We recite affirmations to counter negative thoughts. We redesign our spaces, hoping for inner change. These approaches are like applying fresh paint to a house with structural damage. The surface improves temporarily, but the foundation continues to crack. The shadow manifests in recognizable patterns. The perfectionist builds her identity around flawless performance. She completes a major project to universal acclaim, but feels nothing, no satisfaction, just immediate worry about the next challenge. Her shadow holds all the permission to be human, to make mistakes, to be enough without achievement. External success will never feel fulfilling until she meets this disowned part. The people pleaser can't say no. He attends events he doesn't enjoy, takes on extra work, and maintains draining relationships. Beneath his helpful exterior grows unacknowledged resentment. His shadow contains his unexpressed needs and boundaries. The right to prioritize himself, to disagree, to occasionally disappoint others. His generosity will always carry an invisible price tag until he recognizes this. These shadow-driven behaviors create the sensation of living someone else's life. You smile appropriately, say expected things, and play assigned roles perfectly. Yet there's a ghostly disconnection, like watching yourself perform in a play you never auditioned for. Jung described this as living a too small life, existing within the confined space of who we think we should be rather than who we authentically are. We construct this cage from materials provided by caregivers, educational institutions, religious teachings, and cultural messaging. Each bar represents an internalized should or shouldn't. The cage feels safe because it's familiar, but cannot contain your fullness. Ignoring the shadow costs more than vague dissatisfaction. Relationships deteriorate as we project disowned qualities onto others. Creative endeavors stall without access to our full emotional landscape. Physical symptoms manifest as our body communicates what our conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. The energy required to maintain this internal division leaves us exhausted. Living with an unintegrated shadow means profound disconnection from your potential and authentic self. You're operating with partial information, making decisions without access to complete inner resources. It's navigating with half a map, then wondering why you keep getting lost. Your shadow contains everything your conscious mind has deemed unacceptable: qualities, desires, and capabilities you've disowned to maintain your identity and sense of belonging. But your shadow isn't merely negative traits. It houses both your greatest fears and your greatest gifts. The shadow that holds your capacity for anger also contains your power to establish healthy boundaries. The shadow concealing vulnerability also protects your capacity for deep connection. The shadow aspects you judge as selfish might hold the key to necessary self-preservation and authentic expression. When these aspects remain repressed, they don't disappear, they operate from the unconscious. They become the invisible architects of your limitations. The parts you refuse to acknowledge become the forces that keep you trapped in restrictive patterns. Consider the organizational consultant who helps companies identify blind spots while remaining oblivious to her chaotic personal finances, or the therapist guiding others through emotional territories he refuses to visit himself. Each has split-off aspects that don't fit their conscious self-image, creating the very limitations they struggle against. This brings us to a profound paradox. What we resist persists with greater intensity. The qualities we reject don't vanish. They go underground and gain power. Anger emerges as passive aggression. Denied vulnerability manifests as inability to form deep connections. Disowned ambition transforms into bitter criticism of others' success. Living with these split-off aspects is like holding a beach ball underwater. It requires constant energy, and eventually, the ball will burst to the surface, often at the least convenient moment. The shadow will be heard. The only question is whether you'll listen consciously or be forced to attention through crisis. The origins of your shadow. While you exhaust yourself holding that beach ball underwater, it's worth asking how it got there in the first place. Your shadow wasn't born fully formed. It developed through thousands of subtle interactions where you learned which aspects of your authentic self needed to be hidden away for survival. That underwater beach ball didn't appear overnight. It was inflated breath by breath throughout your childhood. Each time you heard "big boys don't cry," or nice girls aren't angry. Have you ever wondered which essential parts of yourself were systematically removed from your conscious identity before you were old enough to realize what was happening? The shadow forms during those tender early years of childhood when we're completely dependent on our caregivers for survival. This vulnerability creates a powerful imperative. We must maintain connection to those who protect us, even at the cost of our authenticity. Picture that moment when you expressed an emotion and watched your parents' face shift into disapproval, like a fractured mirror, reflecting back only the acceptable parts of you while obscuring others. In that instant, a split occurred. You learned that this part of you threatened the relationship you needed most. Our young psyches begin categorizing aspects of ourselves as either acceptable or unacceptable. When a child reaches for an object and hears "don't touch that" repeatedly, they learn something fundamental about their curiosity itself. A creative child told to be more practical begins to divorce themselves from their creative impulse entirely. These early splits become the foundation of the shadow. The psychological mechanism underlying this process is repression. Unlike conscious choices to set aside certain behaviors in appropriate contexts, repression operates without our awareness, pushing unwanted aspects completely out of our conscious mind. The paradox is striking. The more we try to eliminate these unwanted parts, the more powerful they become in our unconscious. The sensitive boy who hides his tears doesn't become less sensitive. His sensitivity goes underground, perhaps emerging later as unexplained depression. The angry girl who learns to smile instead of expressing her rage finds her anger emerging through perfectionism or passive-aggressive behavior. Cultural messaging amplifies this shadow-making process through powerful systems of reward and punishment. Gender expectations shape what gets relegated to the shadow. Boys learn that vulnerability belongs in the shadow, while girls often learn that assertiveness is shadow material. The specific content of your shadow bears the unmistakable imprint of your culture. These messages arrive through countless channels: the toys you were given, the media you consumed, the behaviors that earned praise at school. If academic achievement was prized in your environment, your playful qualities might have been pushed into shadow. If your family valued stoic practicality, your emotional sensitivity may have been banished to the unconscious. Like a vibrant painting turned to face the wall, unseen but still present. The formation of the shadow isn't purely individual. It connects to what Jung called the collective unconscious, that shared reservoir of archetypes that transcends individual experience. Your personal shadow not only contains your individual repressions, but also connects to cultural shadows, those collective disowned aspects of society that operate unconsciously in institutions and social patterns. Common shadow formation patterns reveal themselves across different lives. The creative child consistently directed toward practical subjects may develop a shadow filled with artistic expression. Later in life, they might find themselves inexplicably drawn to artistic people. The sensitive child told to toughen up might develop a shadow containing emotional depth, only to feel mysteriously irritated by others who express emotions freely, like watching someone enjoy a meal you've denied yourself. Shadow formation often happens in the name of love. Parents who discourage their child's anger typically believe they're helping the child function better in society. Teachers who redirect to students daydreaming generally think they're preparing them for success. The shadow forms not through malice, but through misguided protection, which makes it harder to recognize later. Understanding your shadow's origins provides the first step toward reclaiming your personal power. When you recognize that parts of yourself weren't banished because they were inherently wrong, but because they were inconvenient to others, you can begin reintegration with compassion rather than judgment. The cost of leaving the shadow unaddressed is substantial. We repress aspects of ourselves for survival and belonging, but the price is steep. A fragmented life where energy is constantly diverted toward maintaining internal divisions. The energy required to keep parts of yourself underwater could instead fuel a life of wholeness and purpose. The fragmentation affects every aspect of life. Professionally as underachievement or workaholism, in relationships as choosing partners who express your disowned qualities, and spiritually as a persistent sense of incompleteness despite accomplishments. Your shadow's formation wasn't a single event, but a continuous process throughout your development. It wasn't your fault, and it wasn't necessarily the fault of those who raised you. The good news is that what was formed can be transformed. What was unconsciously created can be consciously integrated.